Hello everyone, it's Mottzy again, here with another tutorial for you, this time with the Qubicle toolset. I still am doing it in the context of Smile Game Builder, so at the end of this tutorial I'll show how to move this into Smile Game Builder and use the assets as part of the building out of modular objects. Now, this isn't really part of the modular tutorial, this is mostly a Qubicle tutorial with a little bit of SGB thrown in at the end. I will forewarn you, I am trying something slightly different today with my recording. I have a cold, I have the hiccups, so who knows how this is going to go. Just bear with me and I'll edit out any of the most egregious parts of the audio as I can. Now this isn't a Mottzy minute, and that's primarily because I think this is going to be longer than 5 minutes or so, which I try to keep it down to. So instead, I'm going to record whatever I get to and trim it as much as I can, and hopefully you get some value out of this process. Okay, so here is a brick wall. This is a rebuilt and rebuilt and rebuilt version of the brick walls I used in my original tutorials. In fact, I must have rebuilt this wall 10 or 15 times, not only for either stylistically or sizing, but also coloring and placement. So I've done it so many times, I think I can rebuild it from scratch without too much effort. And so I'm going to show how to build a wall like this and some of the things I learned along the way. I am recording this sort of a stream of consciousness as I go, so again, bear with me and we'll see where we get. So in that vein of me doing it with my eyes closed and asleep, or from memory I should say, I'm going to just delete this right now and start from scratch. First of all, I need to add a matrix, and I'm going to start my matrix at 16 by 16 by 16. So this is the scale I'm going to use when I import it into Smile Game Builder. It will scale up to a standard tile size, and I really want to start with just a basic cube first before I build anything on top of it. So I'm just going to click into Edit. Here we are. To get myself oriented, I'll orient on the top. I use this cube a ton while I'm editing. I saw someone use it once. I thought it was really cool. And one thing I want is these walls are half the size of this cube. Now this cube, if I were using a scale, is about 4 feet by 4 feet by 4 feet. So I want the wall to be roughly equivalent to 2 feet. And that means half of 16 is 8. So I need a cube of 8. I'm going to use this box tool to get started. I'm going to select 8 by 16 by 1, or 16 by 1 by 8. We've got the cube. Doesn't really matter what color I have selected. I make it up to size. I do have to hit enter multiple times to get it to officially place. And there we go. Now the first thing I want to do is, with a wall like this, whatever wall I want to be the darkest is the wall I want this big cube to be. I'll show why as I go, but basically as I put in pieces of the wall, if I want to use a paint tool to change colors of any of the bricks, it's much easier to do if there's nothing behind it that it blends into, because it'll end up changing a bunch of bricks at once if I don't do it this way. So I'm just going to pick a color. It doesn't really matter. I'm probably not going to get the exact colors of my wall. I really just want something. So here's my color. This could always change later, so it doesn't really matter what I put it now. Mainly, I just want a dark gray color. Now I'm going to go to the front of the brick wall. And here's where some important decisions have to happen. If I want even bricks and even lines, I have to do math. And the math works out kind of interestingly. For every line I have to add here, I have to subtract it from the total and then divide by the number I want. And to give you a simple example, because the one I know works is 2, there's 16 pixels here. If I want to draw 2 lines on here, then the space in between I have to figure out what I have to use in order to get the placement even and correct. So I have to subtract 2 from 16, and then I have to divide the resulting number by 2. If I want 2 lines, it'll be 14 pixels I'm dividing those 2 lines between. And between that'll be 7. So I know that I can make an even number of bricks using 7 and then a line. The next scale I can do is probably much smaller. I think it's something like 3 pixels per line or something. It's actually quite hard to get much smaller given the scale we're working at. So that's why I resulted in doing 2. Much easier for me to do that than try to do anything tinier, and tinier tends to look a little bit crowded, and this is pixel art, like it's voxel art, so it is supposed to be a little bit bigger and cartoony, at least in my opinion. So I know that 2 works. I'm going to just do that as my number, and I already have the dark color, so what I actually need is the light colors to work with. So why don't we choose another lighter color? What about this? I don't know, AAA, okay? And I do know that 7 is my number, so why don't I use the control key, and the control key lets me do an area fill with the pencil key, or pencil tool. And I'm going to put this to a height of 7. So again, pencil tool right here. The paint tool does the same thing. I've actually haven't figured out what the difference is between those two. But here we go. That's the first brick. And then I just do another 7 up here. And there you go. I have the 2 lines that I need to make my brick wall. Now, since this is cubic, the lines vertically will be the same number. So I'm dividing by the same number, but there's a difference. I'm not doing it evenly. I'm not doing a line here. I'm not doing a line here or here, anything like that. That would look kind of weird. Looks too boxy. So what I want to do is offset this number. And what I found is usually within 1, 2, or 3 here is where I can draw the vertical line. It's kind of up to you, but you'll see what happens when you try to do anything that's too even. Too even comes off weirdly. And one thing I don't want to do is have any of these edges have a line on them, because when it comes to the larger brick wall and continuity, it can create some weirdness with how the bricks align. So I'm going to do it slightly offset. Why don't we just do 3 pixels from the right? And I can do a line by holding the shift key down, clicking a voxel, and then here's my line tool, basically. So control key, area fill, shift key, line fill. So I got 3 here, so I know that I need 4 more because I can do math, and I'll put a line here. So I got 4, 5, 6, 7. So this would be 7 as well. I can confirm that by just doing a highlight. You can see it's width 7. And so now I got my bottom row. Now the next part is easy. You just find a dividing line on the next level up. This gets a little interesting because to prevent a line on the edge, I kind of have to be offset. So I could do maybe here. I get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now this is a different offset than my walls. I think I actually have it slightly to the right, but it doesn't really make a huge difference. I mean, that's a big part of my wall. So the next thing I need to do is get this over to the other side of the brick wall. Now, if I want this wall to work no matter which way I rotate it, then I'm going to need to flip this piece of the wall. And I'll quickly talk through just how I did this. So there's a selection tool that can basically just select a slice. And you can either do it from this 3D angle. I could try and select something weirdly like that, which I guess is interesting. I don't find myself using it very much, but I do find it very useful to just select a total slice by going to top, right, side, front, and so on. So selection tool, you can press the M key or just click on it, and then I can select this whole block. And this gets the whole front face of the wall I just created. Then I can press the V key, or I can press the move tool to get these grabbers so I can move it in 3D space. A lot of tools have this. And in Qubicle, I can also control drag. I can hold the control key down and drag one of these vertices, and it will make a copy. So I've just made a copy of the front face of the wall. But if I want this to be able to work at any rotation angle, I have to actually rotate this around so it looks the same as this does when I'm on this side. You notice right now it's not right, because on the left I have 2 pixels on the top. On here I have 5, or whatever that is. So I need to rotate it around. So Qubicle has the transform tab, and here is rotate Y. So rotate Y will rotate it around the Y axis, and I can just flip it around like that. Now I could also do, because I just realized I'm kind of silly, I could also just do a flip. I think the flip is on X though, it's not on Y. Let's try this. Yeah, so I can also just flip it by X, and that will flip it all the way around. I don't have to rotate it by Y. Rotate's useful, especially if I want to do a different angle or a 90-degree angle. I just got used to using that as opposed to flip, but either way works. I get there. So now we have it faced correctly. Let's connect it back to our wall. You can also move this around by the arrow keys, which can be helpful for more precise placement. So I'm going to do that. And so I have the other side of my wall. Perfect. Then we got to do the sides. Sides are quite easy, actually. I'm going to do the same thing I did before. So I'm going to use the Alt key and click on one of these colors. I switch to the pencil tool. Then I'm going to just paint the space using the Control key to select an area. And then I'll do the same thing on this side. Now, I could probably do one of those copy-pasty thingies. It's so easy to just draw lines that it's almost as much work to copy-paste as it is to just draw lines. So I'm going to do this here. In this case, this is a much smaller area, and I can only really get one line in here. So arbitrarily, I can pick where I want that line to be. But one of the things that I do to make the bricks look a little bit more whole is on the skinnier side. So this is the one with 3. I try to give it more space, and on the fatter side, I try and give it less. So I could draw a line here, and that gives it much less space. I think that's actually a little bit too less. So instead, I'm going to draw a line maybe 2 from the right, 3 from the right, 2 from the right. Again, it's all sort of arbitrary. As long as you get the consistency, it really doesn't matter. The bricks will look fine either way. Most people aren't going to look at the individual details of the bricks either way, but it does look nice to have some smooth joins and connection between these bricks. So I've got that one there. And so this is actually really simple because I did 2 on this side. So I just go up here, do 2 on that side, and bam. So I have the bricks on that side. I'll go around to this other side on the right, and I'll do the same thing. Boom. So here's our walls. We don't have any really great colors yet, but we have the start of it. Now I get to decide what I want to use for my colors. Now in my graphics I've been building, I use 3 different colors for these bricks. So I choose a light-ish color, a lighter color, and a darkish color. So let's say that this is my darker color. That's probably a good dark color. I'm going to place that arbitrarily somewhere. And then I got to figure out what I want my lighter color to be. I think 999 is fine, or let's see, this is our, maybe we try BBB, have an even lighter one. Maybe that would work. No, I think it's a little too off. So let's try and make this a darker brick wall than I usually do. So let's take an even darker color, and then a lighter color, and then a lighter color. Okay, this wall is going to be darker than the ones I normally make, but again, it doesn't matter. You can always play with the colors later. You'll notice it's very easy for me to do the paint tool. If I didn't start with this base color here, then it's possible that I would have crossed some voxels on the back, and using the paint tool would have just ended up with me coloring everything at once, which becomes quite annoying. Although at this scale, you can also just use the pencil tool and do the area fill. Either way, I do like to just use the paint tool and click, as opposed to have to do the area for every block I want to fill in. So we have 3 colors here. Now there's one thing you should know, that in order for me to maintain continuity in the colors, the left side and the right side have to be the same color. So whatever I decide on the left and right, they have to be maintained. I don't really have a rhyme or reason for what works or what doesn't. I just do something that looks good or doesn't look good, basically. I'm going to just start with darks on the outside, and one slightly lighter in the middle, and then and then these two on the sides. Make sure I got the color right. Yes, I do. Okay. So this is the slightly darker, this is the darkest, and then this is the light color. I just got to follow this all the way around, following the same rule. Now on the sides, whatever color it is, it's the color all the way across. So basically I just take whatever color was on the side and I bring it across with me. And then I have to do the same thing on this side, bring the colors across, and I'm just doing Alt-click, paste, Alt-click, paste. And then I got that one off color there. Okay, so we have a piece of brick wall. Now, even though I doubt anyone will ever see the bottom, I do still like to fill it in, and maybe it's just my OCD. I like to do something with the bottom. I don't necessarily love it being this dark gray color. I actually leave some of the dark gray on the top, but I don't know. Again, it's kind of arbitrary, but I'm going to pick the lightest color and I'm just going to fill in this box on the bottom. I think if for whatever reason we might see the bottom of these someday, it's nice to know that there is a bottom and it has more thought than a solid color. Maybe I shouldn't do that, but you know, I like to be thorough. So I'm not going to worry about the top right now, because in the case of my example, I had a wall that spanned 2 cubes. And you know, you could make a wall this height that's like a little foot wall. Most of my buildings right now don't have a 1 height brick height, because they need to be at least a player height to be a wall. So let's make the second part of this wall. And some people could be done here. All you have to do is take one piece, press the V, and move it up. Oops, press the V and then use the control key and move it up. You might have noticed when I was in here, for those who don't use Qubicle much, you can just double click on outside to get outside of the object you're working on. There might also be a shortcut key. I just haven't learned it yet. So I'm on the outside, and I went a little fast here, so I'll do it one more time. I can click on the object. I can either select the move tool if it's not selected, or I can just start using it because it's already ready for me. Then I'll hold the control key and I'm just going to move it up, and I'll get it right in line. So right now I have a 16 by 16 by 32, maybe it's 16 by 32 by 16 wall. They're 2 separate objects for now, which we can join later, but there's my wall. And if I wanted to say that I was done here, it would work perfectly fine. I can say, here's my wall, and I can make copies of it, and it becomes a wall. But the problem with the coloring of that is it looks a little bit too normal, so it can come off as being a bit stilted and boxy. So I want to go in and get some different colors in here. I don't have a specific reasoning for why or where I do things, but I am going to just pick some different colors. I think down there it was a light color, so I'll put a dark color there. And then maybe what I'll do is put the light colors on the outside and put another dark for funsies. And then we just follow it around. Follow it around. That was dark and that's dark, so we'll paste it around. And there we go. So now we have a wall. And now we have a wall with differing colors. So there's some variance. Kind of worried that that's going to look like there's this continual dark line, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. And then this is the top. So I'm going to finish the top off by doing basically what I did before. Pick the lightest color here, and then just fill in the box at the top, like so. So now I have a wall. Boom, there we go. It's a wall. Since I want to treat this as one object, one thing you can do is you can actually join them. Now, if you want to save these for later, in case you want to have, you know, these little half-high wall pieces, you could just move them over, make a copy by the click and drag, and then select this object, these 2 objects together, and go into modify. And then in modify they have this union option, which will join 2 or more objects together, and now it becomes one object. And you can see in the info panel here on the right, 16 by 32 by 16. Now I have my wall piece. pretty simple. Now, I can't really do much with this in Smile Game Builder or anywhere else because I don't have a corner piece. So to make a good looking contiguous wall, I do need a corner piece, which I can make real quickly actually. It's just this wall with an angle to it. So once again, I will control drag to make a copy. I'm going to jump in here to do my angle. And the way the angle works is these walls go on the outside edge. I think my original walls I had the opposite where they were on the inside edge, but then it seems to look and work better on the outside. So all I have to do, once I'm on the top, I press M. I'm going to select the entire thing. I'm going to make a copy of this entire thing, and then I'm going to rotate it. So this time I do need to rotate it by Y. Now for my sanity's sake, I do have to check to make sure that when I rotated it, it's in the right orientation. So if I go to the original wall, you see this thicker piece and the skinnier piece on the right. As long as this has got skinny on the right and thick on left, I'm good to go. I've already got it placed where I need it at an angle. I'm going to save it. And then there's just a little bit of fixing up I have to do to fix the coloring and some of the overlapping voxels. So I'll just go here, quickly fix the top. Boom. And then I'm going to fix this part of the wall. So to make this work with aligning with other walls, I have to make the left and right match. So the right side here needs a match on the left side here. This is the most likely piece that you're going to be connecting to other walls. So let's get into the front, zoom in, then I can just proceed to grab and change if anything doesn't align, which looks like they're all good. And then I get to decide what I do with the middle part. So this is an opportunity to fix any weirdness with like this 3 colors together. So I can actually choose different colors if I want for these middle parts. Why don't I choose a darker color this time for that piece, and I'll choose that medium color there, and I'll choose a light color here, and I might as well just keep that one. Oops. Keep this one dark. I just realized, so this is what I was talking about earlier. So when I did the copy paste, there's some line in here that is actually not the darker color. But there's a funny trick that we can use to fix this. So it will require me to affect this light area, but what I could do is I could select the dark color with Alt click. I can use the paint bucket tool, and I can use the paint bucket tool with click and drag. So what this is going to do, it's going to color everything I've selected all the way through, so from top to bottom. So I can go and recolor from top to bottom these pieces. So now you can see it went all the way through to the bottom. Now I can use the paint bucket tool to my heart's content, and I'm not going to get that weird coloring thing happening. I can go like that. And so this side is fine because it's what I copy and pasted, and internally it's fine because that's where the joins come together. Everything looks pretty good, I think. All I need to do now is just fix the bottom piece and the top piece so that I have the coloring as I want it. I am going to leave those lines there. Here we go. I will say this, I started this recording and I had the hiccups and they went away, so maybe I need to record more things. Okay, so here we go. Boom. We got a top, we got a bottom, we got side to side. This is our wall. And that's the majority of the work, right? All I have to do now is I have to export it. So I have to export both of these pieces, and I need to get them into Smile Game Builder. If you only wanted to see the Qubicle part of this, then you don't really need to watch any more. Or you don't have to watch any for that matter. But I'm going to show the Smile Game Builder piece because that's important to the work I've been doing recently and relevant to how to create modular objects and put them into your system. I think I don't consider this part of my tutorial series simply because it's really a Qubicle tutorial, not a Smile Game Builder tutorial. All right, so to export this from Qubicle. Now this requires that you have basically bought the full package of Qubicle, which includes a plugin that lets you export as an FBX. It's a separate DLC. So yes, people might complain it's more expensive, and yes, I agree it is, but honestly, it's the best tool I found to do what I needed, and so I was willing to spend the price to make it work. So before I export it, I need to make sure a couple things. First of all, the wall needs to be not at 0, 0, 0, but -8 apparently. It needs to be at the floor piece of this plane. The other thing is that these alignment handles, they need to be lined with the blue and the red. They have to be. This is super duper important to get this aligned right. And then another piece about exporting is, if you export without having an object selected, it's going to export the entire stage. So every object you see here would get exported right now if I clicked this export FBX. But if I select one object, and as long as it's aligned here, even if I have 2 objects overlaid, but only one of them is selected, it's only going to export that one object. So I'm going to export that now. I'm going to show you a little bit of magic. So I don't mess with any of these settings except for voxel size. Some of the people who use Blender might know you have to export at a certain scale in order to get it to fit into Smile Game Builder. Well, with Qubicle, the scale is all across the board based upon the size of the voxels that you're creating. So my scale is 16 by 16 by 16, and that translates into 0.063. Now, I wish I had some magical formula I can tell you, and there might be a magical formula, but to be honest, I basically just guessed and tested until I got the size right in Smile Game Builder. And it's still not completely perfect. So it's really hard to get the voxels perfectly exported, and maybe there's a way to do this by going to Blender and then getting something a little bit more precise. But this still works. This works pretty well with what I'm trying to do. I don't change any of these other options. All I do is do 0.063 for each of these options, and then I export it. So now I'm going to put this in a different place than I normally do. In fact, you're seeing a little bit of things behind the curtain. So here's my graphics folder. This is where I've just put a lot of the things I've been experimenting with and working with. In my town, which is my new set of 16 by 16, I'm actually going to create a new folder in here specifically for these tutorials on Qubicle. So I'm going to just make a tutorial folder. And then I'll save my model in here. Now I'm going to name my model. I happen to know that it's a brick wall, so I'm going to call it a brick wall. And I like to say what level it's on, or like what height it is. So I do brick wall 1 in case for some reason I want to export something at a different height that lets me have something floating in the air or stack them on top. So I'm going to call that brick wall 1, and I'm going to save it. And then since I'm already in here, I'm going to export the corner as well. And it's perfectly set there. And let's put that out there. We'll call this brick wall corner 1. All right, so I have both my assets exported. I have Smile Game Builder ready to go. And so here's all my other tutorial stuff. And then I'm going to add my assets. So we'll go into Objects, go to Add. And I'll go find my tutorial folder, and then I'm going to select both my objects and import. Now the benefit of exporting it at the scale that I do from Qubicle is that I don't have to worry about messing around with this scale here. I could get the same effect by doing 0.063. Apparently it translates, but it's much easier not to worry about this scale and do it from the exporting tool. I'm going to add this. And then experiments there. I'm going to go to tutorial. Then we have our brick wall 1 and our corner. So get my elevation set, and I'll get my elevation set here. Now, this is why I exported at the level I did. If I did it at 0.062, the graphic would be slightly smaller than the red box, and what it ends up doing is on the display side you see lines between the objects. So 0.063 seems to get this at just the right height and the right thickness to make everything align properly. All right, so we got our objects. Let's go take a look at them. Go into our objects, go to our tutorial, and here's our wall right there. I'll just do a real quick build of a house. Sure, you love seeing me build modular houses over and over and over again, because that's my life. My life is modular objects. Modular objects for life. By the way, modular objects is a really hard word to say over and over again. All right, so get this. Put our side pieces in. Boop, ba-doop, ba-doop, ba-doop. Yeah, so good there. Get our corner in place. I'm a professional, trust me. I'm actually not. Pure amateur hour right now. All right, let's get this rotated. Copy, paste. Put it in place. Oh, by the way, totally random, but I did see some very interesting things you can do if you just place the angles differently with these walls. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be boring and just do what was intended. Like this piece. Rotate that puppy around. Put in a corner piece. And voila. We now have a wonderful brick enclosure with no doors and nothing else exciting about it but the fact that it's a wall. And it's a wall that I built in Qubicle, and it's fully modular. That's my tutorial for today. Whatever day that I happen to release this, that is. Once again, there's plenty of other tutorials out there. If you're looking for Smile Game Builder tutorials, there's tons by Companion Wulf, which I continue to put his links in my description. You can check out Mottzy.com. As I continue to update my projects or my tutorials, I'll get some information out there for you all. This week, I'm looking into also doing something with RPG in a box, which is a completely different tool, but it can take voxels, so some of my assets I can just import them in, which is really cool. And I do plan to finish up my final tutorial with doing modular structures and the problems with those objects. So keep a lookout, more to come. I kind of threw this together at the last minute because I thought it'd be fun, so I hope you like it. Feel free to like, subscribe, leave a comment, all that fun stuff. See you guys next time.